What's up, everybody? It's Critical. Wanted to tell another story tonight. A couple years ago, I used to mention from time to time that the hardest class I ever took in my academic career was a ceramics class in my sophomore year of college. And back then, a lot of people used to ask me to elaborate on it, and I just kind of figured now was the optimal time to do so. 2 or 3 years later, when the interest has really peaked in the ceramics story. I see people all the time buzzing in the comments. Do you guys remember 3 years ago in that video that has 4 views on it in total, when he mentioned ceramics being such a hard course? I just need to know how it could be so fucking difficult. So, that coupled with the fact that ceramics in general has been a really trendy topic in the world recently, because I believe there's only one human being left that's still practicing the art of ceramics, so I figured it's time to strike while the iron's hot and get in on this ceramics action. So my roommate and I were going to go ahead and call him G, because that's actually what he prefers to be called in real life, because he doesn't like his real name, so he wants people to call him G. I know it's some Men in Black type shit, but I respect it and I think it's pretty damn cool. G and I took a ceramics course. It was 4 credits. We both really needed the credits, and we thought it would be an easy A and it would be an enjoyable experience, but it turned out it was absolutely miserable. I would rather have my ass cheeks crushed by a hydraulic press than go through that class again. The nightmare really began on the first day of class. We immediately knew we had made a massive mistake taking this course. The professor rolls in by damn near kicking down the door because he was carrying a plate of his favorite ceramic pieces that he himself made over the years, and he was just extremely excited to show us what real ceramics looked like, so he made this fucking extreme entrance that looked like a cereal commercial from the early 90s. He comes stumbling in like he's trying to balance on a pair of invisible roller skates. He had a very difficult time walking a straight line for whatever reason, and he also created thunderously loud footsteps everywhere he went. I swear he just slapped his feet on the ground as hard as he could. You could hear him coming from a mile away. If you had a drink on the table, it would be like that scene in Jurassic Park if the fucking ceramics professor was on his way. It'd just start jiggling and shit, and you'd know he was on his way. It was just very unnecessary and obnoxious. So he rolls in, he's sporting a pair of jean shorts, a yellow polo, and an apron, and this was his standard uniform. You would not find him in anything but this attire. If you found him in any other clothes, you would basically found the Mewtwo in Pokemon Go. That shit just was not going to happen. Sometimes the color of the polo would vary, but he would always be wearing jean shorts and an apron. He had really blonde hair and gray eyebrows and a white mustache. It was a very strange clash of colors, but his mustache was the most interesting piece to me because it wasn't just the normal mustache. He wanted it to be the Hulk Hogan mustache, but his genetics, his facial hair just wouldn't allow him to have it. But it didn't matter. He may not have had the look of Hulk Hogan, but he certainly embodied the spirit, because Hulkmania ran wild in that fucking ceramics class. Shit was just brutal. He surprise suplexed every single student in that class. He let us know right away that it was going to be the hardest course of the semester, and he was not wrong. We would have a quiz every week and a test every 2 weeks on the history of ceramics. Obviously there's no textbook on the subject because no one gives a shit about the history of ceramics except for him. So what he did is, over the course of a few years, he made hundreds of videos on the history of ceramics and put them on Vimeo, and we would have to watch them in order to pass the quizzes and the tests, and each video ranged from 3 to 4 hours, and I swear to you, he made up every sentence. Each video was just a jumbled, filthy mess of ass grease. It sounded like a badly written Magic Treehouse book. It was just so fucking abysmal. He would say things like, "Oh yes, of the Aztecian tribe, Chief Barbed Scrotum was boinking his wife while making the world's first teacup. When he finished, he exclaimed, 'Teacup, made have I,' in quotations, as if I'm supposed to believe that my fucking ceramics professor was there, watching Chief Penis Hair plow his wife and make this ceramics piece. But he tried to play it off as fact. He would even cite sources. My ass. It was just fucking nonsense, but he would actually make it a question on his quiz or his test. Just this really quick shout out in one of his videos here. At hour 1 minute 43, I was mentioning Aztecian Chief Nutsack Wax making the world's teacup. Verbatim, what did he say when he finished? And if you didn't get every word right, you just got the whole question wrong. There was no debating it. It was just fucking stupid. The whole thing was just dumb. And if the quizzes and the tests weren't bad enough, this man was beyond strict with the actual ceramics pieces we had to make. He gave us the world's worst directions on how to make the pots. He just made the whole thing sexual for absolutely no reason. Oh yes, you take your clay right here, and he's just holding it right near his cock. You just start, putting your thumbs in there. You want to get them real deep in there. You want to get those fingers in there too. You gotta make sure it's at least 2 inches thick. If it's not 2 inches thick, you're getting kicked out of my fucking class. I swear to you. Fucking swear to you. I'll call your parents. He was just super creepy about it. Didn't help anyone. Our first assignment was to create 4 pots to his exact unrealistic specifications with no exception. There was no such thing as real pots have curves in that classroom, because if you didn't have your ceramics pieces to the exact dimensions that this professor could jerk off to, you weren't gonna pass the class. You were getting an F. There was only an A or an F. If he could come in the pot and be satisfied with his load in there, you got an A. If he couldn't see himself coming in that pot, he'd either break it or just give you an F and take it. It was just miserable. And we also had to paint the pots with slip, but that shit's just impossible. I don't even want to get into it. Fucking Pablo Picasso couldn't paint a pot using slip. It's just stupid. That was just dumb. So needless to say, G and I didn't do very well in the first 4 pots. We had spent at least 20 hours working on them, and he said it didn't even look like we tried, which was just incredibly insulting because he saw us spending a lot of time in that stupid ceramics laboratory just working on this stupid shit. Yes, I understand my pots came out looking like chicken eggs that had been stepped on, and G's looked like clumps of asbestos. But still, you shouldn't be grading on your students' artistic prowess considering this was a 100 level course for non-art majors. That's just not fair. You should be grading on using the techniques, improvements, shit like that. So that was just ridiculous. But the next one is the one I will never forget. The project was to make a big ceramic vase, and G spent an extraordinarily long amount of time on this one. And he even said to me, Charlie, I'm going to kiss some ass real quick. So he even made a special piece just for the professor to let him know that he was putting in the extra time and the effort. So when the critique day rolled around, G presented him with his present first before the class started. And I was with him, and the professor looked it over for a moment. Then he looked up with the most menacing, hollow, soulless eyes I'd ever seen, just staring a hole through G. And then he piercingly asks him, "What is this?" in the most condescending tone I'd ever heard. And then G says, "I made it for you. It was a present. I just wanted you to know that I'm putting in that extra work that you thought I needed to do." And the professor slaps it out of his hand onto the floor, walks away, doesn't say anything else. And then G has to embarrassingly pick it up and throw it in the trash. It was absolutely surreal. It was just downright evil. And I think he held a grudge because when it was G's turn to be critiqued on his vase, he was testing the structural integrity of it and accidentally broke the vase. And by break, I mean fucking exploded that shit. He was pressing on the sides with so much force. It was like he's trying to do a fucking Hulk clap. It was like that scene in Ricky-O where that man smashes the prisoner's head like a watermelon. That's what he did to G's vase. Just fucking destroys it and then fails him because it wasn't strong enough. I don't know what the fuck the professor was expecting. No ceramics are designed to withstand crushing force from a fucking floppy Subway sandwich of a man. That's just ridiculous. Obviously G dropped the course after that incident, but it was just so hard to sit through and just witness. It was just absolutely mind-boggling how a professor could actually do that. I stuck with it till one more critique. The project was to create a creative bowl, and I'd just given up. I went for Bowser's shell design, but I didn't really give a shit. I just made a really wobbly bowl that didn't even sit flat, and then I threw spikes on the side of it. He hated it, obviously, but he kind of gave me a little compliment in front of the class. He held the bowl up and said, "Class, this is an example of a good idea, but absolutely horrible execution," and then set it back down and went on to critique the next person's work. Whatever, I really didn't try. And I was actually just going to stick with the class and just take the failing grade, because withdrawing from a class, dropping a class mid-semester looks a lot worse than just getting an F. But he actually pulled me aside when I went to class the week after the critique and said, "Please don't come to my class again." He actually said to me, he actually took the time away from the class to pull me into his office and ask me not to come to his class anymore. He was that disgusted with my ceramics abilities that he didn't want me tainting his class with my artistic ineptitude. It took every ounce of my willpower not to rip my shirt off and motorboat his face with my nipples. I wanted so badly to slap this man across the face and ask him who his daddy was. Didn't do either of those things, and I just withdrew from the class. It was just, I don't even know how to describe that experience. That was such a message that this guy hated my ceramics so much and thought that it was such a big waste of his valuable time that I shouldn't even just go to his class. Like, let's say I genuinely enjoyed ceramics and I just wasn't good at it. He's gonna tell me that I'm so bad I don't have the right to even try or go to his class? Fuck you, man. What a colossal sack of shit he is. But yeah, that's my ceramics experience, so yeah, that's it. So yeah. What's up, everybody? It's Critical. Last night I had a dream that I joined this tribe. It was a tribe of people that were very upset with the way YouTube was handling their website, so they moved out to an island or some shit. And I joined their tribe for whatever reason. I mean, I guess it makes sense. I also don't really like the way YouTube's been handling their shit, so I guess the next logical step would be to join a tribe, and it just isolates himself on an island because of it. But anyway, in the dream, I joined this tribe, and we all wore masks. I don't remember too much else of the dream, but the most important part of why I just told you this is that mask thing. Because when I woke up this morning, it reminded me of a mask I made in my junior year of college. And there's a pretty interesting story attached to that mask I made, so I figured since I haven't told a story in a while, I'll go ahead and tell this one. So it was junior year of college, and I was in a class called Dance World Cultures. It's exactly how it sounds. It was just dancing, just in different cultures, and we would study it and write essays on it. One of our last projects was to make a mask out of paper mache. And I'm not a very artistic person, so the mask I ended up making looked like fucking diarrhea smegma. It basically looked like the shadow of the Japanese superhero Ultraman. It was a black mask with like a red line and star going across the eyes. It was as if a 6-year-old was tasked with making some type of cyborg ninja. Anyway, the mask was horrible, and we had to come up with a story attached to this mask, and it had to revolve around dancing. I couldn't think of a happy story for this fuck pile of a mask, so I came up with probably the darkest and saddest story I could think of for something so simple. Basically, the gist of it was, this mask belonged to an ancient tribe that used it as a purifying tool, but it was really painful, so the village elder would put the mask on someone who they thought was dirty, or if the person thought they themselves were dirty with sin, and they would put on the mask and it'd be very painful, but it would cleanse them of their sins and bring them closer to God, and the longer they kept it on, the closer they would get to God and the cleaner they were. And over time, this became an obsession for the tribe's people. They would start putting on the masks for so long it would kill them, and this just continued until the tribe went extinct in their quest to become closer to God. And then, it turns out the mask was never meant to purify souls, it was simply just meant to bring about death and despair. So, not a bad concept, really. I thought it was kind of clever. I thought the teacher would at least see I tried something different here. I know it's like some type of edgy, shitty manga that someone made on a fan fiction website, but it was something I came up with quickly. I did it last minute, and I didn't think it was that bad. So I'm going to class liking the smell of my own farts, pretty confident that this paper will get me an A, because I've always done pretty well at writing assignments for classes. I knew the actual mask portion would bring me down because it looked like some type of dog shit you'd find in a Party City aisle, but regardless, I thought the story would at least carry it to a decent grade. What I didn't realize, though, is when we got to class, the teacher informed us we would be reading these stories out loud, and I immediately knew this was a fucking recipe for disaster. So everyone else had these really nice-looking masks, and they had these really happy story attached to them. "Ah, this was the mask worn by the fairy king of Udall Toodle Town. Ah, it's beautiful. This mask was worn by all the best dancers in the city. It would make them fly, and they'd never feel anything but happiness." And then it came around to my turn, and I just took a deep breath and I just braced myself for this train wreck that was about to happen. So I read my story. It's 2 pages, which was the minimum length. So I just started reading it like I'm reading to a fucking elementary school class, and by the time I finish, the only word that's said is by my friend who was in the class, who just said, "Wow." There was no clapping, no round of applause, no ass cheeks clapping together. There was just no noise. It was pretty much pure silence except for my friend saying, "Wow." What was supposed to happen was a brief discussion and people asking questions about the story, but no one did any of that. No one asked any questions. They probably thought I was just some type of fucking lunatic who was one bad day away from self-immolation. Not even the teacher pitied me with some easy questions like, "What made you do that?" or anything. She just said, "I appreciate you doing something a little different," and then went on to the next person's story. I still managed to get an A on the assignment overall, but I can't help but feel that that A was given to me out of fear that if I didn't get a good grade on this assignment, who knows what would happen. I mean, I came up with a really shitty Stephen King dark story for a very simple, dumb-looking mask. What else could this loose cannon be capable of if I don't give him a good grade? But yeah, I was embarrassed in front of the whole class. Still don't think it was that bad of a story, and I still have the mask somewhere. I'll try and find it one of these days. But yep. That's it. See ya.